All right, hello board members and managers, welcome. Now, this is your essential briefing on the regulations that are, frankly, fundamental to your roles. And look, we're not here for some dry lecture. The goal here is simple: to equip you with the knowledge you absolutely need to protect your members and, of course, to ensure the long-term health of your SACO.
So let's just dive right in with the big question, right? As a director, what are your core legal duties? And I want you to think about these regulations not as just some tedious checklist you have to tick off. No, they're more like a blueprint, a roadmap for building a SACO that's not just successful, but resilient and trustworthy. So let's take a look at what that blueprint actually involves.
Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We've broken it down into 4 main areas. First, mastering liquidity, super important. Then, expanding your business presence. After that, the nitty-gritty of managing shares and deposits. And we'll wrap up with member transparency, which is all about trust. Sound good? Let's get started.
All right, Section 1, Mastering SACO Liquidity. Look, this is really the bedrock of your financial stability. And when we say liquidity, we're not just throwing around some accounting jargon. This is about one simple thing. Can you meet your members' needs day in and day out? That's what it all comes down to.
So if there's one number you need to burn into your memory from this whole briefing, it's this one, 15%. What does that mean? It means your SACO must, and I mean must, maintain a minimum of 15% of its savings deposits and short-term liabilities in what we call liquid assets. And let's be super clear, this is not a suggestion, it's not a nice to have, it's a hard and fast rule. Why? Because it's what guarantees you can always meet a member's withdrawal request. And that right there, that's the foundation of their trust.
And guess who's responsible for this? You are. The board. The regulations are crystal clear on this one. The buck stops with you. You have to put together a liquidity policy, and really importantly, you have to review it every single year. No exceptions. And this policy isn't just a piece of paper. It has to cover the real stuff: appointing someone to manage it, having a contingency plan for when things go wrong, setting your cash levels, and figuring out exactly how you're going to keep an eye on all of it.
So you're probably wondering, okay, what actually counts as a liquid asset? Well, the regulators don't leave it up to guesswork. They're very specific. We're talking about the obvious stuff, like cash, notes, and coins. Also, the money you have sitting in licensed banks, government treasury bills and bonds, yep, those count, and even some short-term deposits at other SACOs. But that's pretty much it. If you want to count anything else, you have to get special permission from the authority. So stick to this list. Now, what happens if you don't meet these requirements? Let me tell you, it is not pretty. This isn't just a slap on the wrist. The consequences are severe, and they can basically grind your operations to a halt. The authority can step in and say, no more loans. Just like that. They can tell you to stop taking new deposits. They can freeze your ability to buy new assets, and this one will get your attention. They can even block you from paying out dividends or bonuses. Yeah? So let me say it again. Compliance here is not optional.
Okay, so we've nailed down financial stability. Let's shift gears and talk about something a bit more exciting: growth. Expanding your footprint, opening new branches or agencies, it's a fantastic goal. But, and this is a big but, it's a heavily regulated process. You can't just wing it. It needs careful planning and, you guessed it, approval.
So, you want to open a new branch? Great. But you can't just go sign a lease and put up a sign. Doesn't work like that. There's a very clear step-by-step process you have to follow. First, you got to tell the authority what you're planning. Then, you have to actually invite them to come check out the new place. You'll need to prove to them that you're ready to go, that you've got everything in order. And only after all that, and after paying a fee, will you get their written approval. You can't open the doors until you have that piece of paper in your hand.
Now, the rules are just as strict when it comes to closing a location. And you need to know there's a huge difference between a permanent closure and a temporary one. If you're shutting down for good, it's a big deal. You need to give your members a full 90 days notice. And you need a solid plan for what's going to happen to all the assets and liabilities. If it's just a temporary thing, it's a bit simpler. But you still have to state your reason and exactly when you'll reopen. And here's the key takeaway for both. You need the authority's approval, no matter what.
All right, let's move on to what is really the heart of your SACO, right? It's the relationship you have with your members. And that relationship is all built around their capital, their shares, and their deposits. So let's break down the rules that govern this crucial area.
Okay, there's a key concept we have to get our heads around, and that's the non-withdrawable deposit. It's a pretty unique idea. Basically, this is the money your members put in that serves as their collateral when they want to take out a loan. And the name says it all, non-withdrawable. They can't just take it out whenever they want. They only get it back when they officially leave the SACO, and only after they've paid off everything they owe.
It's really a cornerstone of how the whole lending model works.
So it is absolutely critical that you and your members understand the difference between shares and these non-withdrawable deposits. They are not the same thing. Think of it like this. Shares are about ownership. They make you a member and they can earn you dividends, but you cannot use them as collateral for a loan. Non-withdrawable deposits are different. Their whole purpose is to be collateral. They earn interest, not dividends. And, as we said, you only get them back when you leave. Making sure everyone gets this distinction, that's a huge part of your job.
And that last point leads us perfectly into our final section, upholding member transparency. Because at the end of the day, that's what all these rules are really about. They're about building and maintaining the trust of your members. And clear, honest communication isn't just a nice idea, it's actually required by law.
So let's talk about advertising. The rule here is simple. No surprises, no fine print. If you're promoting any kind of account, you have to be totally upfront with all the key details. That means clearly stating things like the minimum balance, what the interest rate is, what fees are involved, and if there are any penalties for, say, early withdrawal. It all comes down to making sure your members know exactly what they're getting into right from the start.
Okay, what about accounts that just sit there? Inactive accounts. The regulations lay out a very clear timeline for this. After just 6 months with no activity, an account is officially considered dormant. Now, if a full 5 years go by with no contact, the money in that account is legally considered abandoned. At that point, the board has to step in. You're required to give the member 90 days notice before you transfer the funds. And if you still don't hear back, the money goes to the Unclaimed Financial Assets Authority. It's a long, deliberate process, designed that way to protect the member's money for as long as possible.
So, we've covered a lot, and as we wrap this up, I want to leave you with one final question to think about. Look, all these regulations we talked about, they're the baseline. They're the floor, the absolute minimum you have to do. The real question for you, as leaders of your SACO, is this. Are your policies just about being compliant, just about ticking the boxes, or are they truly designed to build and deepen the trust of every single member you serve? That's the difference between a good SACO and a great one. Something to think about.